Yes, we are live on a Saturday morning, September 15th. A football Saturday. We're a little bit behind, but we got a lot to get to in the next hour and change. It is Across the Board Sports Talk Show. I welcome you all to a great Saturday. It's supposed to be a beautiful day for most of the people listening, unless you're some spot other than Lehigh Valley. I know we got people listening, across different states on vacation. I mean, people are probably, staying away from the hurricane on the East Coast that has hit the Carolinas. I know a lot of people out there are a little upset, including my own family, about the OBX Outer Banks. It's going to take a hit this week, unfortunately, with the hurricane. But that's we're lucky we are out of that zone and we are safe and sound, ready for some football today. A lot to talk about and a surprise topic today. A lot of times, you want to talk about the hot topics, Across the Board Sports Talk Show. We do the stuff that's on the table. We do the main course, right? We do the NFL. We do college football. We'll talk NBA when the NBA season starts in about 30 days, which is crazy to say that the NBA is right around the corner. But today, we have a boxing match that's taken over the world. Alvarez versus Triple G is taking over social media. I'm watching SportsCenter this morning, 6 o'clock this morning, and they're doing a documentary on Alvarez versus Triple G. And if you guys recall, we did the Mayweather-McGregor show over a year ago. It was that last year, August 25th or 26th of last summer. We broke that match down. Obviously, Mayweather came away with the victory, as most people expected. Tonight, Alvarez, Triple G, and basically the topic when it comes down to this is whether or not boxing is still relevant. I know I talked at the Larry Holmes charity event that we did back in July, talked to a lot of legends, talked to a lot of people about that Larry Holmes, at the Larry Holmes event, about what's the state of boxing, right? Where are we in the state of boxing? Do they need flashiness? Do they need pound for pound fighters? Do they need someone with a persona like a Muhammad Ali, like a Larry Holmes? But this Alvarez Triple G match has some sort of juice to it. Got that little feel from last year, that controversial decision of a draw last year, which I think had a lot to do with gambling, which many people believe that boxing is rigged. That's the argument we're going to get into in the 11 o'clock hour, to mix in with a lot of college football today. We've got the top 5 games of college football. That'll list your college board today as far as the topics. We're talking Ohio State, TCU, USC, Texas, which I know is kind of tainted. Both teams 1-1. But if you recall, back in the day with Vince Young running that infamous play, right, Joe? I mean, it changed the whole perception of college football. That was one of the best national championships that I've ever seen in my young life. But we'll talk about that game. Penn State today's got Kent State. Yes, Kent State, a cupcake, right? Not so fast, okay? We remember what happened a couple weeks ago to App State. Kent State comes in as a 35-point dog. I'm interested to see exactly where we stand on that, what people out there are thinking about Penn State. We'll discuss that here as the show goes on. Also, Auburn versus LSU. This is the SEC taking center stage. I don't know if you guys saw it last week. We talked Clemson, Texas A&M on the show. We talked about it on Saturday and Sunday. The SEC, remains powerful, right? You saw Texas A&M push Clemson, which is one of the best teams in the country, to the edge. You see Alabama dominating, right? I mean, Alabama's put the foot on the throats of their opponents so far this year, whether it was Louisville or last week against Arkansas State. So we'll talk about that game as well. Also, we will do the pick segment coming up at 11:15. The fantasy football segment coming up at 11:30. We'll discuss the Alvarez Triple G match. So there's a lot going on here on the table today on Across the Board Sports Talk Show. How is the show made possible? People always ask, how do I get to it? How do I listen? How are you doing this stuff? That's it. That's the topic, right, Joe? I mean, people say, well, how are you putting on a show? Where are you? What's the backdrop? People are interested now. I'm starting to get a lot of feedback from people on Facebook, on social media, via email. People are interested in the show. YouTube. Now that we're on YouTube, big shout out to JDM Photography. We are on YouTube. Yes, Across the Board Sports Talk Show. Just search YouTube and make it happen right there. You can watch us in many ways. You can reach us at the Mixler app, mixlr.com/Joe-Unis, or on Twitter at Joe Unis, JoeYounes 15. You can reach me there any time of the day, 24 hours a day, whatever you want to talk about. Or Facebook Live. That's kind of what's made this the moneymaker, right? I mean, we're on Facebook Live, and we get the chat room going. Interaction. That's what's going to make this show go. I can sit here and talk my ass off for about 12 hours. you guys would be annoyed because I can scream, I could yell, and it just gets annoying after a while. So I'd rather have some interaction. Let's talk about the big game today, okay? Ohio State, TCU. That's kind of what I wanted to discuss as far as the college football front today on the show. And you know, people discuss, well, how can a team do it without Urban Meyer, their coach, right? How can Ohio State succeed? How can they go on the road at TCU and beat a team that's ranked 15th in the country, very well coached, very well balanced, strong on the defensive side of the ball? Well, it's simple. It's hunger. It's motivation. I see an Ohio State team that's more determined without Urban Meyer than with. And I say that because they got a chip on their shoulder. And that's exactly what this team from Ohio State needed coming into TCU. I think it's going to be a great game. Primetime game. Definitely stealing the spotlight tonight on ABC. So that's kind of the game that I'm looking at and say, well, how does a team take how does a team do this without their leader? In college football, and I think this is what makes the debate, how important is the coach, right? How important is it in college basketball, college sports all around? The coach is just as important as a superstar is in the NFL. I believe that from day one. I've said it multiple times on the show when I was with the Fanatic, when I'm here, that the coach in college football is more important or just as important as Tom Brady, as Antonio Brown, Todd Gurley. You talk about the studs in the NFL, right? To go over all the teams that rely on their best player, and I'll tell you that the coach in college is on that surface to that player in the NFL. That's kind of and whether or not you guys agree, that's kind of one thing I wanted to open up. Urban Meyer is just as important to Ohio State as as Tom Brady is to the Patriots. Call me crazy. College kids need coaching more than the NFL. I mean, if I tell you who's the coach of the Memphis Grizzlies, I don't think anybody can tell me, right? I don't think anybody can tell me who the coach of the Sacramento Kings is. You can't tell me because coaches in the NBA, who's the coach for the Chargers? Throw out his name. Somebody on Facebook. It's hard to do that because in the NFL and in the NBA, I always look at it and say, these players can succeed on their own. They don't need those coaches. The kids in basketball and college football, college basketball, they need it. And that's why I think this is impressive what Ohio State's doing. I think it's a chip on their shoulder that he's not there, suspended for everything we know about off the field issues. Did he or did he not know about the situation going on with his own guys? That's for a debate. We know college sports is corrupt. I'm not inventing the wheel here today on Across the Board Sports Talk Show and telling you guys something that you don't know. NCAA is corrupt. Whether the players are being paid, whether people are being given cars and girls and all that stuff, instead of even money, we know that's happening. They're being paid for their talents, and they should be compensated, whether or not it's supposed to be legal or not, or certain things. But I do think college players should be compensated. We've had that conversation here on the show multiple times, especially with the Miller situation in Arizona with his player, who's now an NBA first overall pick. And we talked about that last year with the FBI investigating it. We discussed that. Excuse me. And we talked about how players should be paid. I've always believed that. I think if you were gonna sell a product or sell a jersey or put butts in a seat, those players should be making money. So let's discuss it. How important is Urban Meyer to the Ohio State Buckeyes? And on a more general surface, I know some people on the show may not. Coach Yeager. Thank you, Randy. I was waiting for somebody to answer that. Coach Yeager, former Grizzly, now a Sacramento King, is the coach for the Kings. And we know that, Randy, because we're diehard basketball fans, but there's a lot of people out there that don't know professional coach. It's even NFL. I mean, I got into a conversation the other day about the Browns and Steelers game, and one of my colleagues was like, well, who the hell's the Browns coach? Hugh Jackson. He didn't even know his name. He didn't even know. He's watching the game, goes to overtime, and we didn't even get a chance to discuss that putrid ending last week when the Steelers failed to beat the Browns and ended up having a tie in week 1 of the NFL. But he didn't even know Hugh Jackson's name. And I'm sitting there thinking, I mean, if you're a fan of the NFL, I would think you would know some of the coaches, right? That's kind of par for the course, is to know the coaches that you're betting on or you're picking on or your fantasy players are. But you don't, because coaches don't impact the game in the professional level the way they do at the high school level and the way they do at the collegiate level. And that's kind of where I'm at today with this topic. It's seeing a team like Ohio State go on the road against TCU. Now, I know a lot of you Penn State fans are listening. You're cheering for TCU tonight, rightfully so. They're a 13.5-point dog. We'll get to the segment at the GodfatherLocks.com segment coming up at 11:15. They're a big underdog, almost 2 touchdowns. If you're a Nittany Lions fan, you're cheering for TCU. And that's kind of where it's at tonight with this TCU Ohio State game. I'm tuning in, excuse me, strictly because I'm seeing two great programs battling it out. A team with a high-powered offense and a team with a strong, solid defense that we remember TCU for being, even back in the LaDainian Tomlinson days when he ran wild for the Horned Frogs, put TCU on the map. That's why I'm tuning in. So let's discuss that. That's the number one topic of the show, along with your 5 main games to get to today. We will talk about that, the top 5. I know I do top 3 topics. Let's do top 5 college games of the day. We'll go through them. Couple pick segments coming up again. 5-0. Actually, no. Sorry, last Sunday. Excuse me, I have to be honest here. 2 losses in the NFL last week on the show. So now I'm 5-2, Joe, on the show. I blemished my record last week as I went 5-2 for my first 7 picks here, free on the show. We'll get back on track today. College football undefeated on the show. So there you go. I'm undefeated in college football. That I'll hold my hat on 5-0 on college football. We'll discuss that coming up at 11:15. On the GodfatherLocks.com pick segment for all you guys out there. And it'll be, hey, maybe we'll pick Ohio State TCU. I think that's one of my top 5 games. It's the headliner. College Game Day's there today. I got a text from my boy Jeff saying Roman Reigns was making a performance or showing up at College Game Day. Big Hell in the Cell pay-per-view tomorrow. Yes, we will talk WWE on this program. Okay, we will do that because that's what makes this show across the board. You can't tune into a local Philly station and hear WWE or Alvarez versus Triple G, right, Joe? You can't hear that shit. People will shy away from talking about it. Not here. I think we'll discuss it.
Yes, we will.
It makes it interesting outside the box. A lot of people tuning in right now on Facebook Live. Welcome. It is 11 o'clock. Across the Board Sports Talk Show. The show is brought to you by these fine sponsors. We could not be here today without these sponsors. I'm being honest when I say that. Red Jewelers, the law offices of Albert Yakub, The Cut, your Lehigh Valley Realtor Eli Boutros, Laziz Mediterranean Grill, Biagio Pizzeria, JDM Photography, and the Mesa Middle Eastern Restaurant. Those 8 have made this show premiere, gold, special, whatever else you want to say. It's made this possible, and all this fine stuff that we're going to do. We're going to have some live shows coming up in the next couple of months as we try to change it up. If you want to come out and enjoy the show for yourself, join. And Joe and I were talking the other day. We were saying, we should put it out there for anybody who wants to come and co-host, right, Joe? There's always a room for another chair. We can just throw somebody right here. And, now that we're on YouTube, we're going to be sensations in a couple of weeks. It's not going to take long for this show to take off. Now, there is a video I'm already on YouTube, if you don't know, plenty of times back on the Fanatic. I did videos for Godfather Locks. We used to do preview videos. My ex colleague there, one of my good friends, Sean Brace, who backed the site for many years, big supporter of the show, and as also a friend of mine. We used to do a show called The Edge. And The Edge was basically the Godfather Lock segment extended, right? It was just going through game by game with a similar backdrop like this. It was phenomenal stuff. So we're definitely going to be on YouTube. If you guys want to put your name in a hat and you guys want to come on down to an undisclosed location, I'll let you guys know if you want to reach me direct. We can open up that contest. What do you say, Joe? I mean, that was a great idea, right? Don't you think it will change it up?
I think some people want to hear some combative conversation.
Yeah, you get one-on-one. Kind of like the way me and Devon used to do back at the Fanatic. I know some people listen to that. Of course, Harry Mays, Tony Bruno, all my guys I used to do the shows with. We used to go battle mano-y-mano. And then my program director used to barge in and say, you can't scream. Stop screaming in the microphone. It was like, I would just take the microphone and scream, pop, you know what I mean? And just yell. That's how passionate it got and how much you argue. But we are going to open that up to anybody who's interested in joining the show, whether it's on location in one of our large live shows coming up or right here in an undisclosed location. It is Across the Board Sports Talk Show. Again, I led the show off with a little bit of a tease. Alvarez versus Triple G, right? I know it's a college football Saturday. We got the top 5 games coming up here in a second. But where do you guys feel about what's the gist behind this Alvarez Triple G matchup tonight? I mean, are you interested? I know it's a very basic question. Is it drawing any attention to the normal sports fan that may have been turned off by boxing over the last, X amount of years because boxing has lost its mojo, right? People always say, well, they don't have that superstar, right? I mean, Mike Tyson's gone. Lennox Lewis is gone. Floyd Mayweather, he's retired now, quote unquote. He'll come out if he's getting paid $10 billion. But some of these athletes that have been legends, right? We did a show, Joe, with Larry Holmes. We were sitting right there with Larry Holmes and all those guys there, and Vinny Paz and all. And it was crazy sitting next to these guys doing a show. Michael Spinks and all those guys. We're doing a show, and it's like these people have been legends of boxing, and now it's like pulling a tooth to get people to tune in. Which is sad because boxing is a legendary sport. It's been around for ages. I was a huge fan growing up, as I still am, and I watched tonight. I'm watching. Are you watching, Joe? Are you tuning into this match?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean it's grabbing some attention. Now you used to watch boxing back in the day with Mike Tyson back in your era, and also did you catch the like any of the films of Muhammad Ali and Frazier and Lennox Lewis and all those guys back in the day? Were you all up on that or no?
Actually, yeah, I was. My father was actually a boxer, and
Really?
my uncle, so they used to box in New York together.
Oh,
so
wow.
I grew up in the boxing era.
Oh, I didn't know that. I had no idea about your dad. I had no clue. Wow. So you were around the boxing feeling for the whole...
Absolutely.
Wow.
We're still all boxing fans.
Yeah. So that's the thing. And Alvarez is a big Mexican supporter. Everyone loves it. It's great to see. I think that's what makes boxing special, right? I think what makes it special, just like soccer. When you watch these teams playing soccer, you get that background of, this is my country, right? This is my squad. If you watch the World Cup, how big the World Cup was. Because, if my country's in the World Cup, all of a sudden my blood's coming out. Like I'm boiling, right? So you got a boxer who represents Mexico. I'm watching the documentary, he's saying some of the Mexican fans are down on Alvarez. They're down on him. Then there's the rest of the Mexican fans, they love him to death. So it's interesting to see a guy put the country on his back tonight, going up to try to go for the belts and get some kind of revenge against Triple G. I always find that as an added flavor to a competition, to a sporting event, is backing your country. That's how I look at it.
But you know what? They did that to Manuel Marquez against
That's
Manny
true.
Pacquiao.
That's true. That's
They
true.
were like, oh, man, he ain't going to win again.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah,
going to
they
happen.
doubted him.
They
Yeah.
doubted him.
Yep.
And somebody went to sleep.
Yeah. No, you're right.
And
You're
I
right.
like both boxers, by the way.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. What you have a prediction? Because I'd like to see, and I'm not getting any interaction on Facebook, but I'd love to hear people on Facebook because, again, Joe, I feel like people on Twitter, again, and that's why I plead with you guys to get Twitter. Try to get Twitter because Twitter changes your whole mindset when it comes to sports talk. You start to see a different side of fans, of news, of information, right? And I'm seeing this morning. I'm like, I cannot wait for Alvarez versus Triple G. I'm seeing tweets from sports fans, general sports fans, that are they gonna risk $145 tonight on Triple G? Are they gonna wager 100 to win 125 on Alvarez? There's gonna be betting going on. It's part of the game. I mean, it's not. It would be crazy for me to sit here and say that there's not gambling impact on this boxing match. But as a fan of the sport, are you still interested in this guy? I want to take a poll. I should have put this on last night. Damn it. I had a bad toothache last night. I was telling Joe my tooth was fuming. But I should have put out a poll saying, does this draw any sort of attention to you? For Joe, it does. For me, it does. I'll be watching tonight. I kind of want to get your interaction on Facebook and see where everybody's thoughts are. And if nobody cares. Because people might not care about boxing. If some people had said it died a long time ago. I mean, I've gotten into arguments when down at the station. I remember saying I can't watch boxing because it lost its juice. And I've gotten into arguments saying that it just doesn't have the selling product that people were so used to for so many years. And it's like it's missing some juice.
No, we're missing some warriors.
Yeah, badasses.
Back then, and I'm not saying there's none now. But back then, we had warriors.
Yeah. We were sitting next to one, right? A couple months ago.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Holmes was a beast. I mean,
one of my favorites is Vinny Pazienza.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, Vinny
Broken
Paz.
neck, guy comes back, wins it.
Yeah. Vinny
Warriors.
Paz. He became our best friend that night. So it was like seeing him in person and what he went through. His addiction. And a lot of these guys, right? They go through addictions. A lot of athletes have gone through problems and battled back. But to see him right in front of you, the way they battle their scars, it's crazy, man. It's phenomenal. Tim Frisbee, my man Tim, Deer of Grad, says, I've got Canelo in this one. Canelo is already good defensively and is quicker to the punch than Triple G. I think Alvarez definitely has the upper edge here as you talk about this. Are we offline right now? I think we said broadcast interrupted.
Just a little low.
Yeah, a little lag.
We're good.
Tim's right. I think Alvarez with plus 125 is a great pick tonight, and that's kind of where I'm at as far as who I'm picking tonight. I'm looking up the latest odds here as I'm sitting here doing the show. It's always good to take an underdog, especially with the result that was last year with that bogus decision of a draw. I think everybody was outraged. Everybody was like, "There's no way this match should be finished the way it was," and it drew a lot of attention. It's kind of why we're here today with this matchup, right? Everybody's like going crazy over this rematch because it ended in such a bogus way last year, and nobody, for me, it's like, it's sad to see a matchup of that caliber, right? Of that kind of feel for a match of that big, you get a championship matchup on the line, two guys fighting for the country, and yet it ended in a draw. I mean, it reminds you of all those years of how bogus certain things could be. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, this is boxing at its best. This is for the championship belt. I mean, you can sit there and rip wrestling all you want. I don't ever remember, even if it's fixed or not, a match of saying, well, it's a draw. What do you mean it's a draw? How is it I don't understand. A draw. Right? I mean, did you see that fight last year? Did you watch it?
No, I did. I you know what, honestly? I think when you have two warriors going at it toe-to-toe.
Yeah.
And the judges like both, it's hard for them to make a decision. But the fighters themselves make it hard because they're both getting great shots.
Absolutely. And what makes it even more, it's like, I always think in this situation, as again, I'm trying to get the latest, I think it's plus 120 right now, Alvarez plus 1. So again, and if you don't know how that works, if you like Alvarez, like Tim Frisbee, you would go ahead and say, okay, I want to risk $100 on Alvarez to win. You're going to get back 120. So if you risk 500, you get back 120 times 5, which is 600. So you gain $20 for every 100 if you want to bet Alvarez, which is an interesting proposition because Triple G has got that thing about that aura about him to make him the favorite. Of course, he's the champ. Normally, the champ comes into a championship match the favorite. If he wasn't, then I would load up on Alvarez and say call it a day because it would just be a bogus line. But he's going to be favored. He's the champ. I like Alvarez. I'm with Tim. Again, I'm just interested to see from my listeners here on the Mixler app. I see a bunch of people tuned in here now too. It's great. If you want to reach the show, go to the Mixler app, mixlr.com/Joe-Eunice, or on Facebook Live, Joe Eunice, and of course on Twitter at Joe Eunice15. Whether or not you're even watching this, whether or not it still grabs attention. We're going to talk about the college football slate coming up here in a couple of minutes. We got the pick segment, 11:15, a little bit of fantasy football notes at 11:30. I know some injuries tomorrow, some guys in and out. Whether or not Big Ben and A-Rod are playing, we'll talk about that coming up at 11:30, and then the Twitter update at the end of the show. So let's hear it. Let's hear your thoughts again on whether or not you're watching. I'm watching. Joe's watching. You heard us. I think it's pretty simple. To say I'm going to be locked and loaded tonight, and whether or not boxing has lost its juice, I think Joe's spot on. We lost some warriors. We need that spunk back in boxing, the way we have it, that badass attitude, right? That I'm going to go in there and bust somebody's ass, put a nosebleed into somebody. That's kind of what it's missing. And you call me crazy. Oh, WWE is fake. How do you watch that, right? I get that all the time. At least at least there's people going through table, right, Joe? I mean, we still watch wrestling together sometimes.
Yeah, it's entertainment.
It's entertainment, and at least there's some Warriors aspect to it. There's a scripted storyline, which I think is cool. I mean, I always make fun of football, the NFL, for now becoming a scripted storyline, but it's good to still see some entertainment like that because boxing, can't argue, has lost its entertainment value because we're missing Warriors.
We are. But at the same time, going back to this fight, you got traditional Mexican fighters. Mm-hmm. They're known for coming up with some hard hitting, impactful guys.
Oh yeah.
And then
it's in their background. It's part of it. You know what I mean?
When you get fighters from the Eastern Bloc, and when I mean Eastern Bloc, I mean Czechoslovakia, Romania. I mean these Polish guys,
the
Klitschkos. These guys come from a background where you got to fight to live.
Yeah.
And people don't give them credit, but they're known for producing some awesome fighters.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go MMA, you got Fedor and a couple other big time names that these guys, when they hit you, whether they're in shape or not, you're going down.
You're going down. Yeah.
So you got two traditional fighters gonna lock up again, basically.
Yeah, and that's why I thought it was an interesting side topic to get into today, and I wanted to get your opinion on that. And I kind of knew where Joe was gonna stand because I just knew that he would be tuned in tonight. I know he still likes boxing, and some people tune in. I just didn't know what the overall feel would be from my listeners that are diehard football fans, right? Diehard NFL fans. How does it translate? You always talk to, when I used to do the show all the time down on the Fanatic, and I said, basketball fans, NBA fans don't watch hockey, right? Hockey fans don't watch the NBA. The physicality of the game is totally different. When you used to watch it back then, it's like, well, I'm not gonna watch a game where you hit somebody on the arm and it's a foul, and then you watch hockey and there's blood. Right, and there's blood, and there's gore, and there's a totally different aspect to the sport. So you watch NFL fans saying, I don't want to watch boxing. I'm not into it because it just doesn't do anything for me. Guys dancing around for 12 rounds doesn't do anything for me. That's kind of the argument.
Well, there are some guys that do more dancing than swinging, and that's their strategy. Some of them will dance around,
Floyd
throw
Mayweather.
some fake shots here and there until they see that opening.
Yeah.
Once they see that opening, they throw that left hook, uppercut combo, and they get you, and boom, they
Boom,
won.
it's a wrap. Yeah, and if I recall, Floyd Mayweather made a living off of doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, he made an absolute killing off of dancing around and being the best pound for pound, quickest fighter in the ring. He did it against McGregor. That's why people talk about boxing saying it's strategic, man. It's all about the mind. Unless you're just going to go in there and just fucking go for a TKO, it is about being smart, being technical. The game has changed, just like the NFL. And I can get me on another rant. I don't want to get into this topic anymore because I was sitting back the other day watching the Ravens and the Bengals, and about how much it's just so soft to see the way the game has transpired and the way players are playing the game, and you see the way it's hard to watch. And I'm like, foul penalties that shouldn't be penalties that are penalties. It's just, I don't know, it just fluctuates the whole game. So boxing, I'm not the one to sit there and say they're dancing around and it bothers me. I actually enjoy it. I think it's smart. You need to be smart. Make it done. Get it done the way you got to get it done. That's the way I look at it, no matter what it is. All right, it is 11:13. It is Across the Board Sports Talk Show. Of course, the show brought to you by Red Jewelers, the law offices of Albert Yakub, The Cut, your Lehigh Valley Realtor Eli Boutros, Laziz Mediterranean Grill, Biagio, JDM Photography, and Mesa Middle Eastern Restaurant. Those are your top 8 advertisers of the show. Make this show go. Top 5 games today in college football. Let's hear it on Facebook Live. Let's get that discussion going. Whether or not there's some games that stand out to you that you have circled on, your tablet or your phone or your newspaper if you're still back in the old school way of looking up games and who's playing and who's not. I, for one, think the best game of the day, obviously, I know I'm not really saying anything new here, is the TCU Ohio State game tonight, 8 o'clock ABC. And if you're a Penn State fan, which I know I speak to a lot of you guys on a weekly basis here, whether or not you're a diehard Penn State fan or a casual fan, or you just went to their school. I know people, it's okay to be a fan. Obviously, you go there. You should have the right to be a fan the rest of your life. You're an alum, right? I know a lot of Penn State fans that are supporting them throughout the years. I mean, I'm a Temple grad. Our football program had a great couple of years. Now it's back that flatlined a little bit, back down to earth as some coaches have left the nest. Speaking of Matt Rule, who has a big game coming up against Duke today for Baylor, we might have that in the pick segment in about 2 minutes. But what games stick out to you the most today? It's kind of where I want to take the conversation about college football and to see exactly what game are you watching. I mean, I tend to sit back and watch them all. I think it's important to get the clicker and go, I have my iPad. I can have up to 4 games at once, whether it's the TV, the iPad, and then my other 2 phones. I can watch and track 4 games at one time. So I'm going to be all covered. Whether it's I'm interested to see Florida State today against Syracuse and see what Florida State team can bounce back after how poorly they looked. I mean, they almost lost to Samford last week. I mean, Samford almost beat them last week, and it would have been just a complete disaster for Florida State after losing the way they did to Virginia Tech, and then come back and to possibly lose that game to Samford. That would have been just a complete joke if they would have lost that game last week. So interested to see what you guys are watching. If you're concerned or not about Penn State going forward, I know they bounced back very nicely last week against Pittsburgh, putting up a 51 spot. Anytime you win 51-6, I know we discussed that on Sunday. It's a remarkable feat for them to do that. And they did their business last week. I think they handled their business, and I think it was impressive to see Penn State come out that way last week and get the job done. So it's that's the Penn State team we expected to see. You're in the top 10. They dropped to 13. They got a big win, and they are still 2-0. No matter how you get it, right? No matter how you do it. All right, Godfather Locks pick segment. Every Saturday and Sunday on the show, we will do this segment. And I've gotten questions of what it is, and kind of what we do here on the website and the advice that we get. What the segment's about. It's simple. If you're interested in getting some tidbits on the lines, on what the game is, what's going on in the games on that level. We just mentioned Alvarez versus Triple G for a quite extended period of time. If you want to wager on that, we just kind of go over and we'll discuss some of the games coming up And, I'll give you 2 free picks every Saturday and Sunday. 2 seems to be the magic number. I think that's a good average. I don't want to give out more than 2. I'll try to give you the best plays of the day the way I see it. For my listeners here, of course, on the website, you can pay per day, per week, per 3-day, per month, however you want to do it. You get the picks, and you could you can subscribe to the website, and if you want to jump on and make some wagers yourself, you can do so. That's kind of what we do in the GodfatherLocks.com segment. All right, let's start with the nightcap. I know we're going to go to the back end first. Ohio State, TCU, big matchup, 4 versus 15. Again, what to expect from Ohio State without Urban Meyer? Well, we've seen it. We've seen what Ohio State's done, right? I mean, Ohio State's gone out and has dominated the first 2 weeks of their first 2 opponents and put a beat down on Oregon State. And, of course, last week doing the same thing, same damage with, Urban Meyer not being there. We mentioned the coaching impact that it happens on teams. 13.5 points tonight for Ohio State. A little too much for my liking, all right? I'm not going to take it, and I don't trust taking TCU against Ohio State, and I'll be, going to my point that it is, they have a chip on their shoulder. They do. I mean, you don't have your coach. They feel like, they should have him. He's not there. What team to expect? Are they going to come out and drop 35 points again tonight? I'm not touching it. So if I advise you guys not to touch the Ohio State-TCU game, just watch it. Just enjoy it, right? I mean, sit back and watch football for what it's worth. And if you're a Penn State fan, just cheer against Ohio State. Nobody wants to see Ohio State win if you're a Penn State fan, right? I mean, you want them to get a loss as early as possible and kind of knock them out of the race here early on in the year. So you'll be cheering for TCU. My free picks come against LSU and Auburn, 3:30, CBS. I'm taking Auburn, all right? I know LSU's looked good in 2 games. I know they looked very good against Miami. Auburn struggled a little bit against Washington, still got the win, still got the cover, looked very good defensively. I think the quarterback play for LSU will struggle, will cause a lot of problems for LSU, and I think Auburn is going to take advantage of it. I think they can make plays, whether it's through the ground game, defensively. I think they're going to cause turnovers. They're at home. The crowd's going to be rocking. It's a big SEC game right now. I actually love Auburn today, minus the 10 points. That's your first free pick coming up at 3:30. I think I've taken Auburn. Actually, Auburn was my first free pick a couple of weeks back here on the show. If you guys recall, when they played Washington, we took Auburn. I'm backing them again. I think Auburn's a good pick at 3:30. I think you take them, and I think you just go with it. Take them again. Again, quarterback play is key in the SEC when you're going up against tough defenses. The way the SEC is all about, it's going to be a challenge for Auburn, LSU to stay in that game. If Auburn can get the ground game going and just kind of ball hawk on defense, it's going to be a long day. My second free pick is kind of obscure. It's a game that not many people are looking at. I don't blame you guys, but when there's 100 some odd college games, I kind of try to weed out the best games to bet on. Army over Hawaii is my second free pick. All right? Hawaii undefeated 3-0. I get that. Army minus 6.5 at home. Again, talk about a ground game. It's going to be tough for Hawaii to cover that crazy offense that can run the ball any shape or form. Army, it's hard to cover a team that spreads it out like that on the run game. I actually like Army a lot. Army probably more than Auburn today at minus 6.5. That's my best pick of the day if I had to pick it. So take Army. I know it's kind of hard. And Joe, the thing is about betting, people would say, dude, how do you take North Texas? If I called you up, Joe, and said, Joe said I needed a win, I need a pick, right? There's 100 fucking games today, and I tell you take Army. Are you gonna just take it? Like, okay, you have to watch it. Are you one of those guys that need to watch every game if there was money? I know you want to enjoy it, but if you want a winner, you want to try to make some money, go for it. No matter what the team's name is.
I would definitely tune in and out.
Yeah, you want to watch it if you have hard-working money on it. But I'm saying, does it matter who the team? I know people out there always bet the big games, right? They only bet like I know somebody bets every Eagles game because he's an Eagles fan. So it's like you want to wager on a game like that every week. That's because it's your team. I mean, it's crazy. If you can make money elsewhere, why just stick to that one bullet? You know what I mean? Why stick to that one gun that you've only known for so many years? I think you just kind of go outside the box, and that's what we're doing here with Army.
Some people just don't know better.
Yeah, it's like they say. Well, I always get emails saying, "How did you pick this team? What do you know about Army?" I know I'll get that today when I talk about GodfatherLocks.com. What people will say, "Why are you picking Army?" Well, it's because I have a feel for the game. I think it's a great spot. If I didn't think so, I just wouldn't be throwing stuff on the wall hoping that it works out. I mean, I'm not just crossing my fingers. I think it's a good spot, and that's why I'm taking them. So Army and Auburn today.
There you go, folks. Write it down.
Yeah, there you go. And if you want to visit GodfatherLocks.com, you can do so for, again, tomorrow, NFL Big day in the NFL. We'll talk about that tomorrow on the pick segment. But of course, anybody who wants a pick or two, or you kind of just want to enjoy some games and add a couple dollars to it and make it more interesting, you can do so here, of course, on your own, and you can track GodfatherLocks.com. All right, let's get the conversation going. Not much going on the Facebook Live today. I don't know if there's something going on or people just sleeping in or getting ready for the fight tonight, but I would love to get some reaction from people about not only the Alvarez Triple G fight, but also the college football Saturday slate of games that we have coming up today, that I think a lot of people are tuned in and interested to see what exactly is the top 5 games of the day. What games are you kind of... I'm intrigued by this college football day today. I think it's going to be a great day of college football. Most intrigued by Ohio State, TCU, and Auburn, LSU. I think it's a great combination. But the Alvarez Triple G conversation is on the table. I think that's a very big topic of discussion, because there's a lot of people that I know, a big fan base that is all about this fight. And then I see people saying, nah, I'm not doing it. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying boxing. I'll just stay away and not watch it. I'll track it on my phone if I have to, or I'll just see the storyline tomorrow to see if Alvarez gets what he deserves and wins, or Triple G keeps the belts. And that's okay. I'm not one to sit there and say I'm against it. If that's the way you feel, that's the way you feel. I know I'll be tuned in. Joe said he'll be tuned in, and of course I'd like to get your interaction here on Facebook as you guys are tuning in on 11:23 Eastern here on a Saturday of a college football Saturday. We'll get going here too. Coming up in about 7 minutes, fantasy football. I'm down on fantasy. I talked about fantasy football before. I'm not feeling it as much as most people are. I know a lot of people still have their multiple leagues and they're in with their buddies and stuff like that. I'm very down on the situation with fantasy football. I had a sluggish start last week. I started the Saints over the Vikings defense. I know, make fun of me now on Facebook. I started the Saints. I was high on the Saints. I even gave it out as a suicide pool pick, and that wasn't very smart of me because they got blown out by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. One of the biggest surprises last week in the NFL was the Saints going down the way they did. It was just embarrassing. I mean, I did not expect that from Ryan Fitzpatrick. Did not expect that from Drew Brees, the way they struggled. I thought that was just an embarrassing performance. And it's hard to start your season, of course, for a team like the Saints, who have dominated at home for so long, right? I mean, they've owned that dome. Teams that have gone in there have been just deathly afraid of playing in that dome year in and year out, whether it be a Monday night game, prime time, or just any given Sunday. That's always a hard spot to go into, and then yet they gave up all those points. So I didn't see that coming. I apologize for anybody who took the Saints last week. It wasn't, I didn't want to bet them, and I tried to say don't bet it. The line was too big, but for them to actually get blown out the way they did, and to lose, and then to lose the suicide pool, was just devastating for a lot of people, and I take blame. I do. I think I caused that a little bit last week, as I didn't think they would lose that way. I don't think many people out there had Tampa Bay. And if you did, God bless you. I don't think many people really selected the Bucs to have that kind of performance. Now, Tampa Bay plays the Eagles tomorrow. Interested to see what people think about that on tomorrow's show. And we'll see exactly what everybody's feeling is when it comes to the Eagles traveling down to Tampa. Hot weather, right? I know it's still warm down there. Going to be interesting to see how Nick Foles plays in the second start. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. All right, fantasy football. Any of your questions coming to the fantasy show, the fantasy segment, you can reach us in the many ways you can reach the show: on Facebook at the Facebook Live, where you can see me right now, or on the chat room with the Mixlr app. You can open up your Mixlr app, mixlr.com/Joe-Eunice. You could tune in and send me your fantasy football conversations there as well. And on Twitter at JoeYounes on Twitter, and we can get your thoughts and your stardom, situms, and who you should play or not on there as well. So definitely get on and thoughts, because people are in leagues. Speaking of money, I mean, people are in leagues that are for lots of money for fantasy football, right? I mean, we talk about people who are in leagues that are for big chunks of change. I mean, this is not something that's cheap for a lot of people. I know people who do like $1,000 leagues, $500 leagues. They're in stuff where it's per day. They're buying that FanDuel, DraftKings stuff, and they're in fantasy football. And this is why people still talk fantasy. This is why we're doing it on the show. Every Saturday and Sunday, 11:30, we'll talk fantasy football. Of course, Le'Veon Bell still out for Pittsburgh. They took him off the depth chart. Everybody's kind kind of going crazy saying, oh my God, Le'Veon Bell's off the depth chart. We talked about Le'Veon Bell last Sunday on the football show. He's still not showing up, Joe. So Pittsburgh, still without Le'Veon Bell. No idea what's going on. He's on my fantasy team, screwing me, right? I'm not able to start him, as many people across America are struggling with why he's not showing up and he's holding out. So it's still a discussion point for us here on the show. What are you doing instead? Luckily, I have James Conner for the Steelers. Went off last week, but the Saints-Vikings mishap kind of cost me my first week. So if you guys have any stardom, sit-em requests or any debate about fantasy football, I'd love to get that going here on the show on Facebook Live as well. All right, this segment brought to you by the law offices of Albert Yacoub. He had sparked this. He's the one who requested us to do more fantasy football talk. You could reach Albert at 610-437-2185. Yes, he is a premier lawyer in the Lehigh Valley. Any problems with the DUI, drug offenses, violent offenses, call him up. He'll give you a free consultation. If you have any problems that you have going on at Yacoub Law, YACOUBLAW.com. Also, this segment is brought to you by the Elias Market and Bake Shop. Yes, 2 locations. If you are from the Lehigh Valley, you do know, the best spot to get produce and the best spot to get some dessert. Those are the Elias Market and Elias Bake Shop. Of course, a lot of big fall fruit coming in right now. I follow them on Facebook. I see some of their barrels and barrels of produce coming in. Check them out at the Elias Market. You can go on by and get the best prices in the town. Of course, you have a baptism, birthday party, an event coming up. Call Elias Bake Shop and get yourself the best cake possible. They will take care of you. And if you're planning your wedding next year, they'll sit down and talk about your wedding at the Elias Bake Shop as well. This segment is also brought to you by Essence Hookah Lounge. Saturday night, if you're watching the Alvarez Triple G fight, you want to stay up late, 4 a.m., the Essence Hookah Lounge stays open right there on 3rd Street in Bethlehem. Go on down there, have a hookah, bring your own beverage, hang out, you know what I'm saying? See some people, some college kids, feel young again, whatever you want to do. Check out the Essence Hookah Lounge, and you could be a part of that tonight as well. And this is also brought to you by my good friends at the Aladdin Restaurant. Of course, speaking of a Saturday night, BYOB, there you go. Have a great meal at the Aladdin Restaurant with the belly dancer on Union Boulevard in Allentown, PA. Call them up, and of course, make a reservation. If you're not into the games, if you're just tuning in because you saw me going live, I know some people are curious. I'm always curious about that, Joe, aren't you? When I sign onto Facebook, I see this person went live, and you're wondering what they're doing. If you're a listener of the show,
click on it.
I always click on it and say, what are people doing out there? If you're going live, I want to see what you're talking about. If you guys support me, I'd love to support what you guys are doing as well. But of course, 651 Union Boulevard, call up 610-437-4023 for the Aladdin Restaurant if you want to make some reservations tonight. Belly dancer, like I said, if you're not into the football scenery, you can go out and have yourself a fine dinner. Those are your sponsors of the fantasy football segment every Saturday and Sunday at 11:30. One of the big topics of fantasy that I like to discuss is the quarterback play and injuries, right? Marcus Mariota is banged up. Aaron Rodgers is banged up. Big Ben is banged up for tomorrow, and we'll talk about that more on tomorrow's show. But what to do in that situation when you're trying to start a quarterback in your fantasy leagues, I think it's essential and it's important that you look at injuries and you understand how that's going to impact. I know when you look at starting quarterbacks, it's always who's on the defensive side of the ball. What kind of points can you muster up from your quarterback? If you're going up against the best defense in the league, you shouldn't start that quarterback. I don't have to be a genius to tell you guys that. It's common sense. You don't start the best defense. You don't start your quarterback as the best defense in the league. Like if you would have started Jimmy Garoppolo last week, I would have called you crazy. He ended up having a poor game. Vikings defense feasted on him. You got to understand matchups, right? That's what fantasy football is all about. And I think when you're looking at these kind of injuries, Big Ben didn't play so well last week. I know all you Steelers fans out there struggled to see how Big Ben didn't get the ball out of his hands. So many turnovers. I mean, he could have ended up having 6 interceptions last week. How bad Big Ben played. So when you're looking at it, injuries, you want to stay away. I wouldn't start A-Rod tomorrow. I wouldn't start Marcus Mariota if he's playing. I know I saw the statement saying Blaine Gabbert and Mariota may both play tomorrow. I would stay away from that, of course, if you're looking at that as a possible game that you have circled, I wouldn't go near it. I think that's a game you stay away from, a player you stay away from. Also, Big Ben, I would not go near Big Ben. I think it's going to be a tough spot for them. I mean, look, I like Pittsburgh tomorrow. I think they bounce back. But when you talk fantasy numbers, it's not really a high-quality start. Now, I would start James Conner. I would probably, you can't sit Antonio Brown. I know everybody here on the Facebook Live will rip my head off if I said to sit Antonio Brown. But Big Ben's going to turn the ball over, and we saw it last week. And again, injuries, I would just stay away from starting injured players, obviously, in fantasy football. You can't bank on these players to get you points when they're banged up, and I think it's a stay away thing. And I wouldn't go, it's always here, even if the player is a stud. I mean, if a running back has a tweaked hamstring, an ankle injury, there's something going on in fantasy, stay away from it, even if you're a fan of that team. I know there's some people out there that always draft players on their team only, right? The team that they're fan, whoever they're fans of, they're only drafting players on their squads, and I think that's ridiculous. You want to kind of go outside that shell. I don't think it's smart to just draft players on your team. I mean, you could draft Wentz, Ertz, Jeffrey, and the Eagles defense, and you're a homer, and that's not going to win you leagues. I mean, even though they're four great players, four great components of a fantasy team, you got to be careful with who you're drafting, and of course the waiver wire, very important right now in fantasy football. When you're looking at the waiver wire and making your team that much better at this point. I know different rules for waiver wires right now. I know a lot of people have the bidding system. There's people who have the first come, first serve. There's getting the order of worst to first, or if you pick up a player, you go in the back of the line kind of thing. Then you can put in a claim, and whoever gets him first gets him. There's different ways to pick up the waiver wire. If you want to win your championship of your leagues, you're going to have to scour that waiver wire and pick up the players that you need to win you a championship. So, fantasy football discussion, it's on the table. Running backs. Again, who stood out last week in the NFL as far as running backs? James Conner, number one, right? I mean, he shocked the world with how well he played last week. Some of the struggles, you look at some of the players who struggled, didn't get in the end zone. It's going to happen. Look at Saquon Barkley, big run last week, got a touchdown, over 100 yards for Saquon for the Giants, even though they had a losing effort. Still a great performance for the Giants playing that Jacksonville team, who's very good defensively. What did you think of the Giants last week, Joe? What did you think of Saquon's big run and the Giants' output?
Well, congrats to him and his family. 68-yard run. I believe that was the first in Giants history by a rookie. Yep. So super awesome.
Yeah, no, he had a great game. And optimistic. And of course, tomorrow we'll discuss your favorite team that they're playing tomorrow night. They got the Cowboys tomorrow in Dallas on Sunday Night Football. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. Obviously, one of the topics of the show: Eagles, Bucks, and then Giants and Cowboys discussion. How bad did the Cowboys look? Holy shit!
Wait, I wasn't done. Now, being that my guy did great and my team put a good effort, let's talk Eric Flowers.
Okay, yeah, let's do it. What do you think?
Get rid of him.
You don't like him?
That's what I think.
Yeah, well, I mean,
since last year to this year,
yeah, it's hard.
You got one job.
Yeah, and he can't do it, and that's what's. How are you going to protect Eli Manning? That's the problem. You know what I mean?
Saquon Barkley gets paid to run the ball as hard as he can.
Yeah.
Saquon Barkley gets the ball and runs as hard as he can.
Exactly.
Odell gets paid
to catch the ball
and catch the ball
and
make some moves.
Exactly.
Odell gets the ball, catches it, runs, makes some moves.
Yeah.
Does his job.
Yeah.
Eric Flowers is paid to be a brick wall.
Yeah.
To defend, to stand your ground, don't let anybody through.
Yeah, and he looked pretty bad last week. He did.
When Eric Flowers gets the chance, he turns into an open door or revolving door and lets everybody go past him.
Yeah, and it's not good for a quarterback like Eli Manning, who's we know has made some turnovers in his career. If he's pressured, you're not going to do anything successfully while you're on your backside. I mean, it's not good. And of course, they struggled to score for most of that game. And we know how good the Jags defense is. But, it was a surprising output from the Giants defense. They played well. It very much improved. And you talk about that game tomorrow. Dallas, I mean, one of the worst performances you could ever have. They cannot do anything offensively. They had one decent drive that was put together, and Carolina looked like a Super Bowl contender yesterday. And that's last Sunday. And it was like, I don't know who's going to catch the ball for Dallas. I honestly don't know, Joe. I don't know who they're going to go to. It's amazing. It's amazing. And I think tomorrow, even though it's in Dallas and Jerry's World and all this hoopla, I just don't see Dallas being a contender at all this year. I think they're going to struggle to find anybody to get the ball to get the ball to and score. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. We'll discuss the Giants' chances. Of course, we're going to talk a lot of NFC East as the show goes on throughout the years. I think it's very essential that we do that because we have a lot of Eagles, Giants, Cowboys fans in the area, and we'll discuss that at length and say, well, is the Cowboys, will they be okay offensively? Is Dak Prescott? I think Dak Prescott's quite overrated, to be honest with you.
Overrated.
I think he's very overrated, and I think I remember tuning in the summer to a topic on NFL Network saying, how can you compare Dak Prescott to Carson Wentz? There is no comparison. I know they came out at the same time. I get all that. Carson Wentz going obviously first pick overall when the Eagles drafted up and got him. Dak Prescott a little bit later, but also still a first-round pick, still very highly talented. Obviously he shipped Romo out because of it. Romo ended up in the broadcast booth because of Prescott. A little bit overrated. I think he is. Now he's doing yogurt commercials or whatever he's doing out there. And it's like, I don't.
And still making
money. Still making money, yeah. But I just don't see much in him. I don't. And I think a lot of people out there could agree that he's a little bit overpaid. And they getting him talent is one thing, but I just think it's his decision making is questionable. You don't have receivers to go through. It's so much to go with Cole Beasley and Terrence Williams, and you're trying to make these players, and they're not. They're second and third stringers. There's no star stud. Allen Hurns is always banged up. I know they went out and got him, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Cowboys the rest of this year and to see how long Jason Garrett lasts. And tomorrow night, of course, is the Giants-Cowboys game. We'll discuss that tomorrow as one of your top games tomorrow. All right. 11:40. We got about 10-15 minutes left in the show. I know it's been a very light interaction today. I'd like to get the conversation going as best as we can to finish out the show. Alvarez versus Triple G. I'm excited for it. I'm picking Alvarez. I don't know, Joey. I think you're picking Alvarez too, right? You went with Alvarez.
I'd like to go Alvarez. I always usually do.
Yeah.
But I mean, like I said, these
Triple G's
Eastern Bloc dudes hit hard too, man.
Yeah, so it's hard not to go with the champ.
It's 50-50.
Yeah, the champ is the champ. He's always the champ. I mean, it's gonna be tough. Now, I do think, speaking of gambling purposes, I do think the line, it makes more sense to take Alvarez. There's a little more juice in that. I would not take Triple G if I was betting this event. I would just take Alvarez, like Tim said. He's already good defensively, and he's quicker to the punch than Triple G. And I think last year's outcome outraged so many people that I think he gets the job done tonight in Vegas. I think it's going to be a very, very important matchup for him to get those belts and to put down his stamp on this matchup. So I like Alvarez. I'm surprised we didn't get that much interaction as far as people's thoughts on boxing today. I thought it was it's a good way to look at this matchup, of course, to mix in with the college football season and discussion every show that we do. But for everybody out there who thought that college football you're watching college football throughout the day and then all of a sudden you get to the nighttime and you're looking for that extra cherry on top, I think boxing still is something to tune into. I know it's not the same popular sport that it once was when you talk about Larry Holmes, Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, all the legends, but it's still something to watch. I'm back in Alvarez, interested to see what people are tuning in, and I didn't get much feedback today, so I guess it's a no. I guess people aren't really caring about boxing. They're not really tuning in and breaking down the matchup or interested in what's going to happen and putting money on the match or whether or not they care enough about this rivalry that's been brewing and the hatred that is Alvarez versus Triple G. I'll be tuned in tonight. Of course, late night action. And that fight might not start till like 11 o'clock, 11:30, but I'll be tuned in, or maybe even 12, to see what happens there. All right, top 5 games. We only went over a couple of them. We've talked very much at length for the Alvarez Triple G fight. We talked fantasy, the pick segment. If you missed it, every show, Saturday and Sunday, 11:15, we do a pick segment. My 2 free picks are Auburn and Army. Army -6.5, and Auburn is -10. Those are my 2 free picks today for GodfatherLocks.com. Of course, the top 5 games of the day, according to myself, and of course, if you guys want to chime in on any of these 5 that we can discuss, Ohio State, TCU would be your first. LSU, Auburn is your second. Your third, I know USC, Texas, both off to a sluggish start, both 1-1. Texas looked like complete shit against Maryland. They came back last week and they had a big blowout win. USC looked pretty bad offensively against Stanford. Stanford all of a sudden looking like the cream of the crop in the Pac-12. They may hold their destiny with Washington losing that first game to Auburn. Stanford looked pretty good, but USC not looking good overall. They're 1-1. Texas is 1-1, but that doesn't take away from that little rivalry that was started by Vince Young back many years ago in 2006 when he ran in that infamous national championship touchdown run, and he capped off that one of the best national championships I've ever seen. Texas is -3.5 tonight, 8 o'clock at home against USC. I'm not a fan of USC. I think USC's offense looked pretty bad. No Sam Darnold anymore. He's now a New York Jet. He put on an excellent performance on Monday. So they're missing that quarterback play. They're missing that spunk. They're missing that fire. This is going to be a tough game tonight. I would back Texas. I think Texas is a good team at home. They'll get that backing from their home crowd, and I would take Texas -3.5. Not a free pick, but it's a game I have circled on the schedule. Another off the radar game that I have written down in my notes is Arizona State versus San Diego State. Something that I teetered on picking last Saturday. I gave you guys Arizona State as one of my free picks along with Duke over Northwestern. I think San Diego State gives them everything they can handle. Arizona State beats Michigan State. Big win for Herm Edwards. I don't know if many people know that. Herm Edwards is coaching the Arizona State Sun Devils now. That was such a big win for them. Tonight at San Diego State, it's going to be interesting to see how they go on the road as a ranked team. Their first 2 weeks for Arizona State was against UTSA and Michigan State at home. Now they travel on the road against San Diego State. It's going to be interesting to see how they perform. I actually like San Diego State as another bonus pick. I think San Diego State plays well, plus the points at home. Remember, they upset Stanford last year on that same turf. So expect a big fight out of San Diego State. I think it's going to be a great game to watch late night. I think it's always good to stay up late and watch those games maybe you want to simulcast the fight with that. So that's another game I have circled. And of course, the latest line with Penn State. Let's see it. Penn State right now -35.5 against Kent State. They're expected to win by more than 5 touchdowns. The last time they were favored by 24.5, they didn't cover against App State. That's a big number, though. I don't know if Kent State from the MAC can hang with Penn State. I think they kind of put a beating on Kent State. I would never lay those kind of points, but they do have a Big Ten opening schedule next week at Illinois, and then on September 29th, Ohio State comes to town to Beaver Stadium. Let's see if they're going to be undefeated, if they're both going to be undefeated coming into that game. Penn State should beat Kent State and Iowa and Illinois. Let's see if Ohio State can take care of business. Joe, what would you think about that? I know a Penn State grad, a Penn State alum, you could sit there and say, well, Penn State at home against Ohio State. Talk about that. Both undefeated, right? I mean, I'm sure you've been to the Beaver Stadium before plenty of times. The atmosphere of that kind of game, what would it do for Penn State as a whole? I mean, potentially both undefeated. Huge matchup. Probably be a primetime game. I mean, how crazy would that be? We should take a trip out there and do a show from there. That's what we should do.
If you don't have a ticket to that game, it's going to be hard to get one.
Yeah, I believe it.
Because Beaver Stadium, and most of the people who listen here have been to Beaver Stadium, and hopefully some that listen haven't and are going to get a chance to go.
Yeah.
But it's electrifying. I mean, some people say, yeah, I go to Penn State, so I go to... No, it's totally different. It's When they say we are, it's we are.
Yeah.
If you went to Penn State, even for a week, you're an alum.
Yeah, I mean, hate them or love. I have my thoughts on Penn State in general, but that program has a complete that stadium, the way they do the whiteouts and the way they get that atmosphere going, pretty impressive for Penn State. I mean, I like it. It's a great scene. The one thing I love about college sports, Joe, is the band and the crowd. I know, call me crazy. I don't know if it's silly or not to say that, but the atmosphere in the stadium, you can't get that type of atmosphere in the NFL. No way.
No.
You're not going to see that on a Sunday.
It's. You know what? Pennsylvania itself, or Pensy.
Pensy,
Some people refer to it. Sorry, I played one of those games. You know you're from Pennsylvania. This morning.
Yeah.
People don't give us enough credit, but Pennsylvania produces football players.
Yeah.
Not people who play football. They produce football
Yeah, it has
players.
that blue-collar feel, though. You know what I mean?
We produce wrestlers.
Yeah.
We produce baseball players. And one that we don't get credit for is we produce hockey players.
Yeah. No, we do. We do. That's the one thing about it. And Penn State has so much talent in the NFL right now.
Among other sports.
Yeah, there's lacrosse and soccer players. And
we produce athletes.
Yeah. No, you're right.
In this state. And it's just something in the roots of growing up here in Pennsylvania. And, you know, the work ethic of the Pennsylvanian people is just you work. Whether it's just laying cinder blocks or something.
Yeah, blue collar.
You work.
Yeah. You went to Penn State, I went to Temple. Very state schoolish, very diverse. I mean, we were lunch pail people is what you call. I mean, really what it was, and that's kind of what Penn State's all about, and that's what Temple's all about. And Jeff, my boy Jeff chimes in and says best atmosphere in the country. Of course, Penn State alum himself, big Penn State fan. I mean, he's dialed in. I'm sure in about 15 minutes he's gonna be dialed into Kent State and Penn State. And diehard fans, they put themselves on the line. They go to Beaver Stadium. They watch these games. I think to see that kind of game across the border rivalry in Ohio State, that's huge, man. That's huge. Not only for Penn State's future in this season, but it just goes for recruiting. I mean, you're battling for recruits right on that borderline. In Ohio State and Penn State, you can get some recruits just based off of beating them, right? I mean, that's what makes college sports crazy. I mean, I always like watching these recruit battles going. They're battling with Pitt and Ohio State and Maryland and even the schools outside of Pennsylvania come up to Pennsylvania and try to grab guys like Alabama, Florida. I mean, people are coming up here trying to get the talented players. You talk about basketball. I remember there was Philadelphia players going up to Syracuse to play ball, to play for Jim Boeheim in Syracuse. And you don't want to see these players go, but that's what it goes to show you about the talent, and that's what Penn State. That's why Penn State's ranked right now, man. They get a lot of good recruits. You're going to rip James Franklin all you want. He got some recruits, and Penn State's definitely a contender now after they got past that first hiccup to App State.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? Pennsylvania invented Smash Mouth.
Yeah.
Football, Smash Mouth. Hockey, Smash Mouth. Fill in the blank.
Exactly.
Sport.
Exactly.
That's it.
Badass.
Several years ago, you had two options. You finish high school, and if you were good enough to be a doctor or something, you went to college, or you finished high school and you worked at the Bethlehem Steel or the steel factories out in Harrisburg and Berwick and all that.
Yeah.
Those were your options. Either which way you were going to work.
Yeah.
Whether it was in the weight room or lifting I-beams.
Yeah. That's kind of how it makes this area tough, and what makes I don't know. That's kind of how we get our chip on the shoulder. Talking about chips on the shoulder as far as Urban Meyer. That's how we get our chips on the shoulder. I mean, we get that from being born and raised here. And it's interesting. I know there's a lot of people who watch Penn State because they went there. There's a lot of people watch them just because it's Pennsylvania. And that's fine. I mean, there's people who support that. It's like the NFL. I mean, people who say, well, I'm not really a fan, but I cheer for the Eagles because they're local. You get that a lot. I mean, you get that a lot, especially from the older people that just want to support the local teams. And when they won the Super Bowl, it meant a lot to the city of Philadelphia, not just the Philadelphia Eagles franchise last year. Speaking of the Eagles, tomorrow we will talk Eagles-Bucks. We'll get that going. Joe can't wait for tomorrow for the Cowboys-Giants discussion. I know. I want to throw up a poll question today, and I think what's what makes it interesting is your most hated team in the NFL, no matter who you're a fan of, tends to be the Cowboys. I mean, Patriots have now gotten a lot of hate over the last 10 plus years. Forget 10, 17 plus years, dating back to their first Super Bowl championship that they won with Belichick and Brady jumped onto the scene. The Patriots are hated. The Cowboys are hated. Kind of where people stand with the NFL and who you hate the most. It's hard, man. Dallas and New England is very hard.
Well, you know what? There's your poll for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Who do you hate the most?
Yeah, who do you hate the most in the NFL?
Or who do you believe is hated the most?
Yeah. It's like the Yankees, man. The
Cowboys
Yankees.
Or Patriots?
Exactly. Cowboys or Patriots. I can kind of know where you're going with that. Actually, no, I don't know. Maybe you would take you would take Cowboys, but it's close second is the Patriots, man. You know.
You know what? I watched the I almost made a couple Cowboy fans happy there. I watched the Patriots because they play good football.
Yeah, well,
that's it.
Coaching.
That's it. They play good football. So whenever they're playing another team that I'm not a fan of or anything, I'll watch the game because I know I'm going to watch a good game.
Yeah. To appreciate what you're seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, no, you appreciate what you see from Tom Brady. I get that.
That's it,
you appreciate greatness. I've had that conversation with a lot of people. But we will talk. Maybe that's the poll question today. We'll be on Facebook Live. Who's your most hated in light of the Giants-Cowboys game tomorrow? In light of the Patriots having a tough game against Jacksonville. We'll talk about that game at length tomorrow. We'll discuss that. Of course, the pick segment at 11:15. The fantasy segment at 11:30. And, of course, a lot of things to get to tomorrow. We'll discuss some of your hot topics of college football today and the NFL schedule for tomorrow. We need more interaction. I think the first couple of shows, the first 4 shows we did was excellent. Today, a little sluggish. Maybe the weather's nice. Everybody's out.
The weather's nice. I know myself, as soon as we're done, I'm going to run to hook up with my family. And both of our nephews are actually playing football. They are. Yes. Congratulations to them. Yes. Pee-wee and the one is full
Flag and Pee-wee. Yeah, Flag and Pee-wee. Yeah, big shout out to Alex and Austin. I know if their dads are listening or if their mom's listening, tune into the video. Big shout out to them. Of course, Joe played football for many years. I played football. Joe better than me and longer than me, but I played football, basketball, soccer for 8 years each. You know what I mean? Or soccer only 4, but a ton of years I played sports, and part of great raising your kids. I think a lot of people out there want their kids to get into some sort of little league, some sort of organized sporting, and it helps not only with their health and getting their energy out, but being involved in some sport and getting social with kids, right? I think that's big at this stage of their life. So a big shout out to them. And of course, you're going to jump out and do that. I'm going to watch college football today. Again, free picks, Army, Auburn. Army, Auburn, the A's today, backing up the A teams with Auburn and Army, and a bonus pick. Yes, a bonus pick tonight for all you listeners. San Diego State. Yes, an upset is brewing. As much as I loved Arizona State the first 2 weeks, watch out for the Aztecs tonight at home, 5-point underdog against Arizona State. I can see an upset brewing. So Alvarez, Triple G, not much interaction on Facebook. If you're watching this chat room after the fact, we tried giving boxing some love. I'm still a fan. I'll be watching Alvarez versus Triple G tonight from my comforts of my home or wherever the hell I'm at tonight at 12 o'clock. I'll be watching that fight. I'm backing Alvarez. We'll see what happens tomorrow. We're going to cut the show a little bit short. Try to get the interaction going tomorrow on Across the Board Sports Talk Show. Big shout out to all my sponsors that have made this show possible, especially those who have backed me from the beginning and the premier sponsors. Red Jewelers, 2 locations, 5248 Hamilton Boulevard and 704 West Emmaus Ave. Buy, sell, customize, repair jewelry. Contact them at jewelerslehigh-valley.com. We mentioned law offices at Albert Yacoub. Big shout out to Albert, 610-437-2185. The Cut, 1058 3rd Street. Big shout out to Matt, Chris, Tim, and Jake. If you're looking for a barber, look, this hair. I know Christina last week, a lot of people were saying nice haircut. You can get it done. 610-443-0511. Contact The Cut. Eli Boutros, if you're looking to buy, sell, refinance your home, whatever the case may be, contact Eli at 484-547-8228. Elias Boutros, that's Boutros. Just take a look at my Facebook page. You get all his information there, the best rates in the area. How about Laziz? Big shout out to Laziz as well. New furniture there. Place looks phenomenal. New furniture. And if you want to go to their Facebook page, they were making the garlic sauce yesterday. My God. My Lord. My Lord.
That stuff is great.
It's like drugs. I put that on anything. But take a look at that and take a look at their video. Of course, Biagio Pizzeria Restaurant for pizza, wings, pasta, burgers, and more. When you're watching these games, if you're watching the fight, call up Biagio. They'll take care of you. JDM Photography, my man Joe, who you hear his voice here on the show, provides the lighting and the backdrop. Big shout out to Joe for all his help. And the Bake Shop, Elias Bake Shop, the Wooden Match, Meza, Aladdin, Eric Alnor, my counselor there. If you want anything you guys want to talk about, of course, take a look. If you want a jeweler, a bake shop, a lawyer, a place to eat, or you need your carpets dried, whatever you need your mold and water cleaned up, contact us on our Facebook page at Across the Board Sports Talk Show. Enjoy the football. I'll talk to you tomorrow. We'll talk a lot of football, Eagles, Cowboys, Giants, everything tomorrow on the show. Talk to you then.